Leo Vader, a YouTuber, made a video a while back called Prestige TV's Intro Problem. It's an interesting watch that examines the problems with many TV intros. Anyways, I thought it'd be interesting to examine the opposite question. What makes a TV intro good? I'll hopefully answer that question by the end of the video. And I think it'd be helpful to look at some examples along the way. And those three examples are Dexter, House of Cards, and Succession. So let's start with Dexter. If you're not familiar with the series, it's a TV show from 2006 about a serial killer, Dexter Morgan, who deals out vigilante justice while trying to evade the Miami police, who he happens to work for. It's not really prestige TV to say.
Feels good.
Hey Barbie, how'd you like to suck my cock?
But it does have a very interesting intro, and I think that's useful for our purposes. The character of Dexter is obsessed with blood. He's a blood spatter analyst for the Miami police, and he keeps drops of blood from his serial killer victims in microscope slides. It's a central part of the show that I'm sure if you've seen it before, you don't really need to be told. Kind of his whole thing is blood.
Then it's safe to say blood is your life.
Safe to say.
This is why the intro focuses so heavily on red tones and things like the hot sauce, which is a stand-in for the blood imagery. Overall, the intro makes us feel very uneasy and creeped out, and that is certainly intentional, as most of the time watching Dexter and his behaviors, the way he acts, he is a very creepy and uneasy person, to say the least. There's lots of other symbolism in the intro as well. The focus on food tells us something specific about Dexter. He's obsessed with food, probably as much as he is with blood. Food being displayed prominently in the intro, again, is this hint into Dexter's personality. We also see a mosquito in the very beginning, which could be another hint at who Dexter is. A sort of mosquito who takes blood from all of his victims, just like a mosquito might. Overall, the intro does a very good job of conveying detail about the characters, simply through its imagery, which is our first sign of what makes a TV intro good. Number one, it tells us important details about the protagonist's personality. If you watch the Dexter intro, you immediately already know something about his personality. Even if you haven't really seen the show before, just the general creepiness and even the obsession of food alone, that tells you something about Dexter's character. You might not totally understand the connection between things like hot sauce and his obsession with blood, but these are simply hints that the intro is sprinkling into our minds, getting us ready for the larger plot and the character development. All right, next let's look at House of Cards. This is a very different intro from Dexter, but still very effective in its own right. If you don't know House of Cards, it's a political drama set in DC and revolves around Frank and Claire Underwood, the two main protagonists. They're two influential figures in DC who attempt to get into the Oval Office by any means necessary. Murder, corruption, they will do anything. And like I've said with Dexter, if you've watched the show, I don't need to tell you these things. They're already taken for granted. But so yeah, this intro is entirely absent of character, almost the complete opposite of the Dexter intro. The symbolism is only the environment. We don't see Frank or Claire in the intro. And I think this is an interesting example of how an intro can be effective in other ways than telling the audience about the character. But nevertheless, the cityscapes that we see around DC have their own important meaning. Literally, the shadow of night drapes across the city, the literal darkness and evil of the city taking it over. If you have seen the show before, you might already know how this imagery connects, because Frank and Claire are the epitome of the dark side of DC. They are the shadow that is draping over DC. They're selfish, power-hungry politicians who will do almost anything to climb the political ladder. Metaphorically, they are part of the darkness that looms over DC, the corrupt, the power-hungry, and the evil. The intro shows us a warm, bright DC turning into a dark world that our characters will come to inhabit. This is certainly important because this contrast seems to imply that the light DC sort of represents the facade of DC, as a place of order and prosperity, the center of our government, where things are supposed to get done effectively. Or possibly it even represents how the public views Washington, D.C. as sort of with rose tinted glasses. This idea of DC is then taken over at night by the true reality of what is going on, the dark, seedy nature of many of the politicians that are there. And this is what the whole show examines. It examines the underbelly of DC. It is not looking at the fun campaign fundraising, take a photo with a dog. It's not that part of DC. This intro shows us DC almost like it is a character itself, with a public and private face, just like any other person might have. And the fact that it is transforming in a way that the city is sort of alive in a certain extent seems interesting. And instead of informing us on the character, it does something equally important, which is informing us on the setting. House of Cards is very dependent on the setting of Washington, D.C. By that, I mean the show would not work if it was not taking place in D.C. It would simply not be as entertaining if it was set in St. Paul, Minnesota, and they have to climb the ladders of Minnesota government. And the whole appeal is that the idea that this is the center of power. For politicians, this is their mecca.
Power is a lot like real estate. It's all about location, location, location. The closer you are to the source, the higher your property value.
It would simply not be entertaining if it was not set in DC. Because what makes DC so unique in this show is that as the center of our government, for our characters like Frank and Claire, there is simply nowhere else in the country with the same opportunities for power and control. Now again, I hope I've shown how effective this intro is, although it's in a very different way from our first example. And now we have sort of another sign of what makes a good TV intro. Number 2, it informs the audience on the setting and its connection to our characters. Now for the last example, I want to look at something a little more up to date, Succession. This one is absolutely packed with imagery and symbolism, so I will not cover everything. In my opinion, the main purpose of the intro is to showcase the context that our characters exist in, the past that our characters grew up in. Yeah, so the home movie and family photos are used in this intro to take us back to the golden years of the Roy family, where everything was perfect. They're riding on elephants, this extreme, extravagant wealth that they were living in. So these opening images contrast these two time periods. These images simultaneously show us this contrast between the past and the present, and the privilege that the characters have grown up in. Many of the characters in the home movie will eventually grow up and become the ones that we follow in the show. It shows us the lifestyle that in many ways explains the personality of these family members. It is obvious why they were so entitled, because we see the incredible wealth they grew up in. Like I said, riding on elephants, garden parties. It is the sort of extravagant wealth that many of us can only dream of. But for this family, it was simply their reality, something they got used to. Their home videos are not playing catch in the backyard. It's fancy garden parties where everyone's in suits and riding elephants. So this intro, I think, successfully fulfills the two important uses of intros that I outlined earlier. With this intro, we are informed on the character setting and their background. The background being that they grow up wealthy and all that entails. And this information simultaneously tells us about the personality of the characters that we will eventually follow, that they are entitled rich kids. So yeah, if you made it to the end, I hope you enjoyed this look at TV intros. Really what I just wanted to outline is that a good intro is something that tells us something about the show. It is not just interesting to look at, eye candy. I hope you were able to learn something along the way. So yeah, thanks for watching. If you're interested in more videos like this, please subscribe. I'm hoping to make a video about Gordon Ramsay in the following month.